In the quiet countryside settled between lush woods and a family compound, the old woman stood on the porch of her childhood home. The sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled light across the yard where laughter echoed from children, cousins, and friends, faces both familiar and strange. She watched her family gather in joy, their voices like a melody she had always known. It felt like a dream. Her dad sat in his favorite chair by the fireplace, his weathered hands gently poking at the burning logs with an iron poker. Sparks flew as the wood crackled, casting a warm glow over the room. His face, worn with years of hard work and laughter, was illuminated by the flickering firelight. A cloud of sweet tobacco smoke swirled lazily above his head as he puffed on his pipe, the smell mingling with the scent of burning oak. He chuckled softly, the kind of deep, satisfied laugh that came with age and wisdom. His daughter, now a grown woman with children of her own, stood nearby, watching him with a smile. He was telling one of his endless stories, the ones that always started with, "Well, when I was your age," and never failed to make her laugh. "And I swear to you," he said, pausing to take a puff from his pipe, "that fish was bigger than the boat itself. Nearly dragged me and your uncle right into the river. We were hanging on for dear life, just waiting for that line to snap." She was back to a time when life seemed simpler. She could see her mother laughing and baking, her father whittling by the fire and smoking his pipe, just as they had when she was a little girl. The house, once filled with the smell of bread and the warmth of hearth, looked exactly as it had decades ago. She felt herself smile, but something tugged at the back of her mind. As she walked toward the laughter in the den of the house, her steps grew slower, heavier, as if the ground beneath her feet was shifting. Her reflection flashed in the window, young and vibrant, in her 20s, wearing a summer dress she hadn't seen in years. But in the next instant, the reflection changed. She was in her 40s, then her 60s, her hair graying, her face softening with age. The weight of time pressed on her shoulders. She stopped at the threshold of the house, her breath catching as memories flooded her. Birthdays, weddings, the birth of her grandchildren. It was as though her life was flashing before her eyes, decades condensed into mere seconds. Her knees trembled, and she leaned on the doorframe for support. Suddenly, she spotted her two great-grandchildren standing at the window of the house, peering inside. They were looking into a mirror, their faces serious, eyes wide with a strange recognition. The woman frowned, a question forming on her lips, but they didn't speak. They just watched her. Curiosity gripped her. She approached the window slowly, her reflection now blending into the images of her great-grandchildren. They moved as if to stop her, their small hands pressing against the glass, shaking their heads, but it was too late. She glanced into the mirror. Her breath hitched. Her face in the reflection was not her own, but a ghostly visage, painted with the delicate white outlines of a skull, like the bone-deep mass of an ancient festival. The sockets of her eyes were dark, hollow, and the realization struck her like lightning. She was dead. She stumbled back, her heart racing in her chest. Or was it racing at all? The edges of her vision began to blur, and without warning, everything turned black. The laughter, the sunshine, the warmth of the countryside faded, leaving only silence. Then, as if from the darkness itself, a portal opened. Light spilled out, soft and inviting, revealing a vast landscape beyond. She saw people, hundreds of them, walking toward a majestic baobab tree, its roots thick and ancient, its leaves lush and full of life. The great tree stood at the center of this mysterious place, its branches reaching out like arms, welcoming the lost and weary. The old woman watched in awe as the souls, calm and at peace, made their way toward the tree. It was then that she understood. The baobab was a gateway, a final resting place for those who had journeyed through life and found their way to the end. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, the weight of her years falling away as she joined the procession. The pain and confusion dissolved, and as she walked, she felt lighter, her soul free. The laughter of her family faded, but in its place came the soft hum of the wind through the tree's leaves, a song of peace that welcomed her home. She stepped forward into the portal. The woman stood in awe, her senses overwhelmed by the strange yet familiar beauty surrounding her. She felt weightless, as though she were moving through water, yet she could breathe freely. The world looked like Earth, a vast meadow with soft hills, trees with shimmering leaves, and light filtering through like rays of sun. Except everything seemed to be submerged beneath a clear, peaceful sea. People she recognized glided gently through the air as though they were swimming, their movements graceful and slow. Her heart raced as she looked down at herself. She was young again, no older than 18, her body untouched by time. Confusion gave way to realization, and the truth of where she was settled into her mind like the calm of the waters around her. Then she saw them. Her mother and father standing together and smiling, their faces serene and full of love. They hadn't aged a day since she had last seen them, long before they had passed from the world she knew. Her mother floated toward her, her movements effortless and elegant, arms open in welcome. "That wasn't long," her mother said softly, a knowing smile on her lips as if time had lost its meaning. Tears welled in the young woman's eyes as she moved toward her parents, feeling the warmth of home in their embrace. She realized that she had returned to a place beyond life, to the ones she loved, in a world more beautiful and serene than she could have ever imagined.